this is Attorney Walter Knott with Disability Resolution PA. I want to go through something really quick so that basically you can have a better understanding of something that I do not agree with, that I'm not for, that I think is a bad idea. Let's go through it right now from space.com. By Mike Wall, about 8 hours ago. This is like really recent. Let's see. It's at some point in July, around the 20th, is when it was created. All right. Oregon congressman proposes new space tourism tax. Let's go into it. People who buy joyrides to the final frontier could soon find an additional charge on their bill. So U.S. Rep. Earl Blumenauer, Democrat Oregon, plans to introduce legislation called the Securing Protections Against Carbon Emissions Space Tax Act, which would impose new excise taxes on space tourism trips. Space exploration isn't a tax-free holiday for the wealthy. Just as normal Americans pay taxes when they buy airline tickets, billionaires who fly into space to produce nothing of scientific value should do the same, and then some, Blumenauer said in a statement issued by his office. I'm just going to go through this and then go into why I hate this. I'm not opposed to this type of space innovation, added Blumenauer. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. A senior member of the House of Representatives Ways and Means Committee. However, things that are done purely for tourism or entertainment and that don't have a specific scientific purpose should in turn support the public good. Let's think for a moment. These people, for some of the first times in the human race's ability to go into space, when it comes to a non-trained, like NASA astronaut-oriented person, they are all science experiments. All of them. Everybody that goes up, every genetic human being that goes up is a science experiment. They are literally a crash dummy to find out what happens. The only difference is they're billionaire, which means they're trying to attach taxes to them. But that argument right here, however, things that are done purely for tourism or entertainment and that don't have a scientific purpose should in turn support the public good. Wait a minute. Billionaires paying companies to go into space at some of the earliest forms of transportation. We're talking about like the first couple here. We're not talking about the 150,000th. We're talking about like the first couple of rides up into space, and you're already ready to tax them? They are human crash dummies that just happen to be billionaires. They are genetic tests going into space. And now you're suggesting we tax them? Let's continue, but I think most people would agree we want the billionaires to be happy and spend a lot of money to pay for these companies to take them for space so that we can see what happens to our billionaire crash dummies. Obviously, they're not dummies, but that's what we call them in a car, right? They wouldn't likely be billionaires if they were a dummy. Blumenauer unveiled the Space Tax Act idea on Tuesday, July 20th, the same day that Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin launched its first crewed spaceflight. The first one ever of Blue Origin, and we're going to tax the next one. Oh, here we go. On that mission, Blue Origin's new Shepard vehicle carried Bezos, his brother Mark, aviation pioneer Wally Funk, and Dutch physics student Oliver Damon to suborbital space and back. So the guy who paid for everything, the family member of the guy who paid for everything, and then other people who are trained to literally study this, don't fit into any of the things that he said are purely for tourism or entertainment. What do we? Maybe the argument of the brother, maybe, but still, that's weak. That's weak. Ugh, jeez. Bezos' flight came just 9 days after fellow billionaire Richard Branson's flew on the first fully crewed space flight of Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity suborbital space liner. Right, so we got Elon, then we got Richard Branson, then we got Bezos. Okay. Blue Origin has already begun commercial operations. Damon was a paying customer, and Virgin Galactic. Let's go back here. Student Oliver Damon, a Dutch physics student, was a paying customer, and therefore, you know what we should do? We should charge those students, because if they're going to space, I mean, sure, he might be a physics person. Sure, maybe that's important to space. Maybe he gets a student discount on that amount. Maybe we give him a little bit of the, maybe we do that. But we still need to tax him, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to squeeze the industry from not having every little dollar it can to go into space. Think about that. That's what they're saying here. That's what they're getting at here. Blue Origin has already begun commercial operations. Damon was a paying customer, and Virgin Galactic aims to do so early next year after performing a few more test flights this fall. Sure, guess what? You need paying customers to pay for the billions they just spent to figure out how to go into space. This is probably too far out. There we go. Okay. Virgin Galactic's most recently stated ticket price was $250,000. Blue Origin has not revealed its prices yet, but they're thought to be in the six figures as well. Someone paid $28 million for a New Shepard seat in an online auction last month, but that was a special circumstance. The still anonymous auction winner was supposed to fly on the July 20 mission, but later backed out, and their seat was filled by Damon. Okay, so somebody's paid $28 million to go on this thing, and then they probably sat there and thought, well, you know what? I don't want to be a crash test dummy. If I got all this money and I just paid $28 million, maybe I'll give them that $28 million and I won't be a crash test dummy. Right? Because everybody going to space right now, whether it's in a plane-like object or a Blue Origin-like object, you know why I'm smiling, or an Elon-like object, you know, classic Moore spaceship, everybody going to space is a test dummy. That's what they are. It's just what they are. A $28 million seat. And the person who pays $28 million backs out. Because they don't want to die and you want to tax them. That is a horrible idea. That makes no sense. And here's why. The more you tax these individuals, the less likely we are to go to space. That's the bottom line. Sure, you can make a really tiny tax. Sure, fine. But this is too new. This is far too new. They've got all these regulations that are taxing every part that goes to space. Now you want to tax the chair that they're sitting in? Come on. The proposed new tax would likely be levied on a per-passenger basis as is done with commercial aviation, the statement said. But see, the difference is in commercial aviation, you are not, with a high likelihood, going to die. That's the difference, right? You are not a crash test dummy. Although, you know, and then all of a sudden one goes down and it's horrible. Exemptions would be made available for NASA space flights for scientific research purposes. The statement reads, in the case of flights where some passengers are working on behalf of NASA for scientific research. Oh, so it's only for exemptions for people that work for NASA? What about all those other science people working for commercial corporations? What about the student, our good student, the physics student? Oh, we should tax him because he doesn't work for NASA. The statement reads, in the case of flights where some passengers are working on behalf of NASA for scientific research purposes and others are not, the launch excise tax shall be the prorated share of the non-NASA researchers. So they're going to pay for the people that they're basically... Oh. This is such a bad idea. There would be... And it's not a bad idea in the future. You want to go 3 years down the future, 4 years down the line, it's a good idea then. Fine. But make it reasonable. But right now, this is amazingly terrible. I would say other words, but they would be inappropriate as to how horrible of an idea this actually is. Let's keep reading. There would be 2 taxation tiers. Oh, now we're creating a class and a subclass of humans. One for suborbital flights, and it's just for how high up they're going. One for orbital flights, and another for missions that reach orbit. The statement did not reveal how much the tax would be in either case or if the collective revenue would be earmarked for any specific purpose. Oh, we all know what that's going to do. They're not going to earmark it for, they're just going to go to a special fund of, anything they want to pay for. You know how they do that. This is not good. This is, when you come out with an idea, you come out with numbers, and you come out with why, and where it's going, and what's going to happen, the who, what, when, and where. You don't just throw it out there and hope people get on board with it, because I can tell you this is a bad idea right now. Such a purpose could be the fight against climate change. If the proposed act's... My chair's about to fall apart, it's squeaking a lot. If the proposed act's full name is any guide... Such a purpose could be the fight against climate change. Are we really making rockets going to space about climate change? Is that what the tax is going to go towards? Is that you hinting at that? Is that what that's about? If the proposed act's full name is any guy. Blumenauer is concerned about the potential carbon footprint of the space tourism industry once it gets fully up and running, the statement said. You realize that the future of space is not going to be giant rockets. It's going to be fusion-based energy. It's going to be anti-gravity. It's going to be all these new technologies that we're just doing right now. And if he's really that worried about that, he shouldn't be worried about it after we've had the third company take people up. Right? You got to let that industry breathe a little so that it can make it to outer space where it can't breathe. You got to give it a little bit of space to make it up there. But if you want to choke it right up front with a bunch of taxes, that is not how you get the human race off of planet Earth. And you know that. And you know deep down that the human race has to become a space-faring race of beings. If we don't do that, and there's a problem with Earth that we can't fix, then guess what? We have no way of getting off this planet. And think about that for a moment. Oh, we can fix all these problems. The sun has a solar flare, right? A really big one. That's something we can't necessarily fix if it just keeps having a problem on the sun. If the sun grows in size, that's something we can't fix. If there's a massive asteroid that we know is coming this way that we can't blow up and get it out of the way with all the nukes, that's something we can't fix. If we have to leave, we need the technology to be able to do it. And going to space requires test dummies. It does. And test spacecraft. It does. And test space food. And test space everything. Special metal, special this, special that. It requires all that stuff. You know why? Because it's the first moment in human history that's becoming commercial. And let me tell you what's going to happen with this. Okay, this terrible, horrible Oregon Congressman promotes new space tourism tax. Let me tell you what's going to happen with this. Elon, Bezos, Virgin Galactic, right? All these companies and people, they don't need the United States to make their dreams of space come true. They can go set up their space program in a different nation that would love for them to be there for all the taxes on the property that they buy, for all the taxes on the products that they're using, for all the taxes on everything that happens in the civilization that is created to make this massive thing to go to space. Other countries would love them. They would. They would. In fact, an example of that is that with Elon, they're already writing out that SpaceX, and it's rightfully so, will not recognize any government on Mars. They're the first boots on the ground. They will not recognize any government on Mars. And they have no constitution right now for what's going to happen. Hence, Walter came out, spaceconstitution.com, to create the first constitution that has rights and freedoms and variations of those rights and freedoms, you know, a little bit like this, a little bit like that, a bunch of stages, okay? The colony has 5 people, 50 people, 1,000 people, 500,000 people, 1 million people, the first child on this space station is born, etc. So that at each stage, those different rights and freedoms can be incorporated into a constitution that basically can be used to govern what the humans have as law going forward, right? Think about that. If we don't have a constitution in space, then we have lawlessness. We have anybody can just do anything. Somebody could kill somebody, wouldn't matter, right? And that's terrible. We don't want that. This is a terrible idea. This is a horrible idea. This is way too early. Look, you could come out with a bill in a week, right? But this is what a lot of these legislators do, especially at the House level. They'll come out with an idea and then they'll promote that idea and put it out to the news, and they'll think, man, this will get a lot of people excited about my name. Good press or bad press, people hearing a legislator's name is actually a good thing, because when they look at the ballot to vote, they'll recognize that name and potentially vote for that person. This as an option for space tax is a horrifically terrible idea. I just want to put that out there as somebody who's into space law, as somebody who's into space governance, as somebody who's into space in general. Please think your way through this. You do not want to tax billionaires going to space, because we need their money to pay those companies at the highest potential rate to those companies, so that they can not only be funders or supporters or whatever you want to call them of these future space tourism options. Just think about it. Who buys all the fancy cars, which pays for the fancy cars to make more fancy cars? The rich people. Who buys all the really big, nice houses that creates the new technology that then trickles down to everybody else with regular houses like me? The rich people. We need them to innovate, these companies, with the money they receive from the billionaires. Billionaires do not have unlimited funds. They don't. Everybody likes to think they do, and yes, it seems like they have wrath of God money. Some of them do, but the reality is this. We need their money going to the companies to go ahead and build the future of spaceflight for the human race. This all ends up for us. Wow, this is so cool, ends up benefiting us. That's the reality of this. So anyways, guys, my name is Attorney Walter Knott. I'm with Disability Resolution. I go live 8 to 10 every Thursday, Eastern Standard Time. If you want to catch up with me, that's fine. Ask me questions then, or for the most up-to-date information, ask me for the information then. I will catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and we will go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.